Hey, I'm Jesse. Every week I run small experiments with context-driven development, AI, and a tool I built called imdone. It keeps your backlog right in your source code so you never lose context. Let's see what happens this week. If you remember last week, I was working with a few things that I was wanting to get done with the imdone.io website, and we updated some content on the homepage. We had, I think it was the benefits of using imdone, and it worked pretty well. I prompted, I asked it to perform a task, and at the end of that session, I said I wanted to try something different the next week because I wasn't really satisfied with the results. So, to get started, I did a little work while I wasn't with you, and added something to GitHub instructions for Copilot. So in your project, if you are using Copilot, you should really get familiar with .github instructions. Copilot looks here by default for instructions on what to do with your interactions and what to put in context. So I put a little file in here called task-format. .md, and all it says is information about how to AI instructions. Okay, that should be how AI instructions, so I'll just delete that, will originate and be formatted is located in backlog context.md. So let's take a look at context.md. In context.md, that is in the backlog folder. So I'm trying to keep all of these things in my backlog folder. If you can remember, the backlog folder in your project is get ignored by imdone CLI when you initialize it. And that's where all your synced Jira issues go. So on my team, we're constantly syncing Jira issues and then starting there from a frame of reference. And I just wanted to keep some of the work located in that same backlog folder so it doesn't get checked in with the source code. This is important, not for me personally, but a lot of times when you're doing consulting engagements and you're going to hand off the source code to the next consultant, potentially, you don't want to sprinkle in or give them access to your special sauce, right? The source code is enough of your special sauce. You don't need to see all the rest of the special sauce. They don't need to see all the rest of the special sauce that you put into working with AI. So I'm doing a little experiment there, keeping it in that backlog repository within your repository. That's get ignored. If you can follow that, you're doing pretty well. All right. So what are we going to do this week? I came up with a format that I think works pretty well. I've tried it once with a small change to a VS Code extension I have for imdone called imdone Code Companion, and it seemed to work quite well. So what this entails, this markdown format entails, is that every task in a file has this format. When you want to work with AI or you want to work with your team and keep them in context, I think it's important, even more important with team context, right? So it just consists of a task title, a list of files, and you might put some information about these files too. What's the goal? The constraints, and then an action. And then I've given Copilot little information about this format and where to put the work. And then my philosophy on stories and features. Stories and features are just experiments. You have no idea when you add a feature to your software whether or not it's going to be beneficial or valuable to your users. So every single feature is an experiment. And what do you need to do with experiments? You need to track how well they perform to know whether or not your experiment was successful or was a failure. So let's get started on this one. And what we'll do there is first, maybe let's go into my latest task of updating imdone CLI. So what are the tasks in priority order? To improve user experience, allow attachments and comments on free plan, but limit the number of Jira items to 3. Fix image translation from markdown to Jira and bullet items. And then another one was allow different JQL queries for different GitHub repos. So sometimes you want to have your Jira project synced to 3 different repos. Well, it'd be nice if you had like a JQL that had a filter for labels, right? If I'm in the infrastructure project, I probably want to see, don't get me started on whether infrastructure should be in the source code or separate. I think it should be together, but in some cases it's separate. I might want to just see infrastructure stories in there because it's better context for that repo. So which one should we do? I think they're all pretty relevant. The one at the top is to improve user experience, allow attachments and comments on the free plan, but limit the number of Jira items to 3, is a bit more complex. It's probably going to take some time. So in the interest of time, let's look at number 2. Fix image translation from markdown to Jira and bullet items. So let's get to it. We've wasted enough time already, or I've wasted enough time. You didn't waste any time. Let's see. Fix image translation from markdown to Jira. Bullet items. Okay. So first thing is we should probably turn this into a task. So I am going to just insert that task right below here. And I'm going to use the template task. This is the imdone code companion right here. So you can even create a template just like this one and insert it that easily. If you notice, I put a $sign in and it found it. So that's what I did with that update. Fix image translation from markdown to Jira. So let's get rid of that one. And now we have the format we want. So first thing, files. What files are in there? So let's look through the code and see what files we should be including. So down to the CLI package folder, because that's where I put the CLI. And let's take a look at source. So the translation is probably in adapters. We have parsers and we have mappers. First things first, I probably should show you what the problem is. And I think the problem, let's see if we have any images here. There's definitely an image in one of these. So let's take a look. There it is, enhanced markdown to Jira conversion. Okay, that's where I keep all my work on the image conversion. So if I put a dash in front of this and make this a bullet, it was having trouble translating that. Let's save that and run an imdone push and see what happens. Okay. So it sent it. Let's take a look at the Jira item. Ah, there you see it. It's not getting properly translated into what Jira would recognize as an image. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to edit this image in Jira and see what it looks like. There should be my profile image, my-profile-image.jpg. Huh. It's not letting me select attachments. Okay, let's see if there's a attachment. Attachments, on this work item, or maybe, no, we won't do that. We'll try attachments on this work item. Okay, so let's do attachments. There it is. Okay, good. We'll insert that there. Interesting. We'll try that again. Maybe it's that they're not allowed. That would be easy. We'll just remove the bullet. Okay, well, let's save this and do an imdone pull and see what it looks like. See, I really hate the UI. It's just a pain in the neck. All right, imdone pull. Okay. Okay, so it actually moved it to the next line. So that's quite all right. We can put, let's assume that if an attachment is right after a bullet, that bullet should be removed. Okay, so now we know the problem. Goal. Constraints. This got mucked up. Okay, well, that's because there was no content in here. Okay, constraint 1. I'm going to fix this template first. Let's fix the template. I don't like how that template is looking. We'll fix the template first. It gets confused. Markdown translation, markdown-to-Jira translation doesn't like comments because there's no such thing as a comment in a Jira item. So we'll just change it to this. And then if we go back over here, let's insert this again. Okay, that's better. All right. Now our template's fixed. Okay. What I'm going to say is when a markdown issue, a markdown image occurs right after a list item, Jira doesn't render it properly. Okay, so what are the files that we're going to look at? And we're finally getting back to files. I know it's taken me a while. Okay, so let's go back to files, source, parsers. Let's look at the Jira, or let's look at the markdown parser. I'll give it this one. We'll copy path. Call it markdown parser. Give it that path. And what else? Jira generator. Okay. Copy relative path. We'll change that to Jira generator. Paste that in there. What will the change achieve? Okay, so if an image appears on a line of markdown that is a ordered or unordered list item, place it on a new line. So Jira renders it properly. Okay, constraint 1. What should the constraints be? I'm not gonna give any constraints. Or should I? Yeah, let's give some constraints. Write good tests to cover this case. Don't break existing image rendering in other contexts. I like that. Sure, we'll just stick with those two for now. See how it does. Okay, so now when I go into Copilot, I'm just going to tell it to complete the task on line 28. Let's see what happens. Okay, you could see that line 28 contains the task. It's reading Markdown parser. Great, it picked up our files. And you can imagine a teammate will also benefit from having this. This is one of the biggest problems that I've seen on teams, on the team I work on, is that one person works with AI and there's no context passed between each human on how they interacted with the agents. All right, so it's finding the Jira generator parser tests. It's found existing test files. Okay. Looks like there's a solution being created. Probably want to take a look at the markdown parser. So I can click right here since I've got my Jira issue, right? And whoa, cancel. Huh. Oh, that was it. Found it, but we really need to put this slash in there. Okay. Okay, it wants to run a ZSH command to run the tests. Let's allow that, but I've been having trouble with the agent picking up things from the terminal. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but it is very frustrating. So it just doesn't seem to be running. I am going to run the tests myself. So I'm going to stop this and say, I'll run the tests myself. Well, why don't we run the tests and make sure. Let's run everything and we'll see if just the ones that were added failed. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. I ran the tests. In the markdown parser spec. And all the new ones failed. But the existing tests still pass. Okay, good. So AI is doing test-driven development. This is great. Let's look at the tests, though, to make sure that they are working here. So, should handle checkboxes. All right, so this one is first looking at list items with images. It should generate separate tokens for the list items and images. Image, unordered list, Image unordered list. Okay. I think that's a good test because it's just looking at what it's generating. In the tokenizer. That's perfect. Okay, I can see that the current parser expects each parser to return a single token. Let's run the tests again. That's what it's wanting to do. So the tests are failing. All right, let's see. Let us go to the terminal and I do not like this terminal here. So let's do allow and see if this works this time. I apologize for that. Oh, look, it ran. But it's not detecting the output. That is the strangest thing. Okay. Let's just copy the output and hand it over to our agent. Here's the output from running the tests. Seems like there's a lot of back and forth, and this, so I'm not really thrilled with the way this is working, and part of it has to do with the fact that my agent isn't really interacting with the terminal well. So we're not able to get good feedback here. It's just spinning and spinning and spinning every time I try to run something in the terminal. I think we may want to try this with Claude, but I don't think I have Claude installed. I don't think it's going to come back. Let's try that again. Could be, how am I configured here? What the heck happened? This just isn't working. All right, this is a failed attempt, if you ask me. I think we're going to undo. Let's undo this change too. So I'm going to go into source control. I have to move my face out of the way. imdone Jira plugin 0.26. Doesn't look like there's any changes. Let's run this again. Everything passes. Okay, great. All right, all the changes are undone. I'm going to give this one more shot. But what one constraint is, so that we don't have to interact with the terminal, I'm going to say don't use the terminal. Because it doesn't seem to be working with Copilot. All right, let's try this again. I'm going to close out this chat and start a new one. So let's just start a new one and say, complete the task on line 28. Okay, here we go. I wonder if it's going to listen to me about using the terminal. It's definitely getting some work done. Or trying to. Okay, it looks like it has a plan. Markdown parser. Did we add a test? Yeah, let's continue to iterate. Let's see what you do. Okay, the terminal isn't working. So it didn't understand my instruction, or it may have understood it, but it didn't follow my instruction in the task. Oh, it did, as noted in the task constraints. Let me continue with the file-based approach to add the test and implement the fix. Okay, great. Well, we can at least run this test ourselves and see what happens. You already added the test. Well, let's see what's it's looking for all markdown images. Extract images from text. Where's that being used? Okay, it's extracting images from the text. In the parsers themselves, which is good. Okay. Okay, that seems to be good. Let's continue to iterate. It's creating a simple script to test file to verify that our changes are working correctly. Well, I don't know how it's going to test it if the terminal isn't working. Okay, it's going to add an integration test too. Great. Markdown-Jira bullet spec. There's a new spec. Okay. Well, we've got a few different test files in here. We'll start running these as soon as it's done iterating. Well, it's marking the task as complete before we even tested it, and I think I described in one of the context files not to do that. So another mark against Copilot for listening to us. Okay, so it says it's successfully finished, but we're going to verify, always verify anything done by AI. So let's run all the tests in the CLI package. Okay, the adapters tests are breaking. Markdown parser, edge cases. Should handle lists with only white space content. Okay. Item with leading spaces. Seems to be trimming the space, which is fine by me. I am quite okay with that. So maybe we should just get rid of that. I'm good with that. Let's try running that again. Okay. So wait a minute. Everything's working. Let us see what is going on here. Markdown-Jira image specs. Okay, I'm going to refresh to see if this new test gets picked up. Yeah, okay, it got picked up. Okay, we've got some tests failing here. Markdown-Jira image spec. Handles images with size attributes. No, that shouldn't happen. There's no such thing. Yeah, we're not going to support this. That's a different task. I think the task of translating size attributes in Jira markup to an HTML image tag is something for another time. So let's get rid of that. And I don't understand what it's trying to do here. So let's get rid of this. and try running these again. Okay, it seems to be working. Let's just keep everything and build and push again and see what kind of results we get. Okay, npm run build. Okay, it's running the build, it's running tests. All right. I think this last step in the packaging always takes a little bit of time on my machine. Okay, we're good there. And we want to link this so that when I run imdone, it's running the latest version. Okay, so let's go back to our file in the backlog folder. Let's go back to our issue. Okay, let's put this back on the line that it was on. But we're going to start off with a little bit of text. And we'll just say here is some text. And then we'll push this and see what occurs. That didn't seem to work the way I thought it would, but we are going to take a look and make sure we're running the right version. This should say version .26 of imdone, yes. So let's go and take a look at the issue. And we'll reload. Okay, it seems to be working. Okay, now if I run an imdone pull, I wonder what it'll look like. I think it's just putting it on the next line and then, yes. Okay, it did put it on the next line. This is great. Okay, so now you'll be able to include images. Let's see what happens if we move this image to the middle of the text and text after. Run an imdone push. Let's run a poll. We'll go take a look at Jira, refresh. Okay, so it concatenated the text before and after, but that's fine. Let's face it, you're not going to be putting images in bullet items. We just need them to render properly if somebody does that. If they got a list of bullets and they put an image in there, we want it to render properly, because I did have that case on my team where somebody entered an image and it wasn't showing up properly. So it appears that our problem is fixed. I think it did quite a good job. I'm not sure what your take on it was, but I think that Copilot did a pretty good job with the spec it was given. So I kind of like this. But I don't like that it's not formatting correctly. Let's see what's happening here. Oh, it added some garbage in there. Well, I think it might have broken something, because pushing this should result let's go take a look at the issue. Let's take a look at this issue and see if it got formatted correctly. Well, it did. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. If I run a pull again, is it going to pull it down properly? Oh, it's that Okay. All right. Well, it appears to be working as expected. So I don't like that it still completed the task. This task isn't done until a human reviews it and is able to make sure that the code looks good and should be merged. So I'm going to do that on my own, but I hope this was as helpful for you as it was for me. I'm going to release this video and tune in next time, and we'll try something else with this same exact format and see if we have some better results. Maybe we'll tweak a few things. I'm going to review what we did. So until next time, happy coding.